Amy Slifka. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of OTCB. The Commissioner is at another meeting today, so I'm going to be chairing this meeting. So we'll start. Are there any corrections for the minutes for September 25th, 2015? Okay. Is there a vote to approve? Okay.
I abstain.
2 abstentions. And the rest approve. Okay, so now we're going to go forward with the quarterly report. Peter Shulman is going to present the ECB quarterly report.
Good morning, everyone. The quarterly report, as you're familiar with, is a report that sets forth the number of violations received by ECB, broken down by enforcement agency. It's also a quarterly comparison of the violations received, violations heard, and decisions rendered by ECB. We will also look at the elapsed time from the hearing date to the decision date, look at the decision results for each of the enforcement agencies, and look at the most commonly issued violations by agency. Finally, we'll look at the number of summonses being appealed, as well as a breakdown of the most common types of summonses that have been defaulted on during this quarter. This report covers the third quarter of calendar year 2015. So first, are violations received by ECB in the third quarter of calendar year 2015 compared with the second quarter of 2015. Department of Sanitation saw an 8% decrease in the violations that were issued and received by ECB, down to 108,129. Department of Buildings, a 2% decrease, down from 13,557 to 13,295. DOT, a 159% increase, from 7,404 to 19,157. FDM.
Do we know why?
Yes, I believe it has to do with the fact that they're now issuing electronic NOVs, so they're able to process them and get them through the court faster. And I see Ms. Graham from DOT shaking her head that that's correct. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. FDNY saw a 10% decrease from 11,833 down to 10,684. DEP, a 6% increase from 3,975 in the second quarter to 4,201. Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, a 15% increase from 7,075 to 8,120. Parks saw a 21% increase from 2,310 to 2,805, again probably because of the weather. The Police Department saw a 37% increase from 2,639 to 3,617. DeWitt, a 77% decrease from 280 to 65. BIC, a 71% decrease from 7 down to 2. And Landmarks, a 60% decrease from 62 to 25. Next, we're going to compare the third quarter of 2015 against the third quarter of 2014. So Department of Sanitation remained pretty much the same, with a 0.1% decrease, that's it. Department of Buildings, a 16% decrease down to 13,295. Fire Department, a 33% decrease. DOT, a 98% increase, so almost doubling. Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, a 3% decrease. DEP, a 6% decrease. NYPD, a 30% decrease. Parks, a 22% increase. DeWitt, a 83% decrease. Landmarks, a 47% decrease. DCA is a mathematical impossibility as far as figuring out what the percentage increase is, but it's from 0 to 17. BIP is a 93% decrease. Agency code missing is a 7% increase, and miscellaneous violations was an 86% decrease. Overall, from third quarter 2014 to 2015, there was a negligible decrease of 0.3%. Next are the total violations heard at ECB, a quarterly comparison between the third quarter of 2014 to third quarter of 2015. Sanitation saw a 15% increase. Buildings, a 5% decrease. Fire, a 25% decrease. Health and mental hygiene, a 6% increase. DEP, a 10% decrease. Transportation, a 3% increase. Police department, a 46% decrease. Stewart, 109% increase. Parks, a 15% decrease. Landmarks, a 32% decrease. Vic, a 17% decrease. DCA remained the same at 0. Agency code missing, a 14% decrease. And miscellaneous violations, a 50% decrease. Overall, there was a 3% decrease from 46,556 down to 45,059. Next are decisions rendered third quarter 2014 compared to the third quarter of 2015. Sanitation saw a 16% increase in those decisions. Department of Buildings, a 4% decrease. Fire, a 24% decrease. Health and mental hygiene, a 3% decrease. DEP, a 5% decrease. NYPD, a 47% decrease. DOT, a 3% decrease. Parks, a 7% decrease. Stewart, a 288% increase. Landmarks, there was no change. Vic, a 60% decrease. DCA, again at 0, no change. Agency code missing or invalid with a 29% increase. And miscellaneous was a 83% decrease. Overall, there was a 2% decrease from 37,443 decisions to 36,727 decisions rendered. The next thing we are looking at are the elapsed time from the last hearing date to the decision date. Again, we are continuing to get out 91% of decisions in 10 days or less from the hearing date, and 98.6% of decisions in 20 days or less from the hearing date. So that stays the same. That was constant from the second quarter to the third quarter. Decisions rendered after a hearing. The percentage of decisions dismissing summonses and decisions sustaining summonses remained about the same from the third quarter 2014 to the third quarter 2015. Dismissals increased by about 4%, while violations decreased by about 4%. So there's a little change there, but overall, pretty consistent. Decisions rendered after a hearing broken down by agencies. Sanitation, there were 63% of decisions dismissed, resulted in dismissal, 37 in violation. Department of Buildings, 19% resulted in dismissals, 81% in violations, with less than 1% were stipulated. Department of Transportation, 42% resulted in dismissals, 58% in violations. FDNY, 10% dismissals, 88% in violations, with 1% stipulated. DEP, 10% dismissals, 80% in violation, and 10% stipulated. NYPD, 52% dismissals, 48% in violation. Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, 48% were dismissed after hearings, 59% in violation. Parks, 49% dismissed, 51% in violation. Stewart, 59% dismissed, 41% in violation. Vic, evenly split, 1 was dismissed, 1 was in violation. Landmarks, 0% were dismissed, 14 were sustained, that was all of them, so it was 100% in violation. Next are the most commonly issued violations by agency for the third quarter 2015. DOT, the most common was failure to permanently restore a cut within the required time, then use opening of a street without a permit, and failure to comply with terms and conditions of DOT permits. Department of Buildings, miscellaneous violations, those are code categories B106 and B206. Unlawful acts, failure to comply with an order of the commissioner, and work without a permit. NYPD, vending violations, vending in a bus stop next to a hospital, vending at a prohibited time, place, and failure to display license and/or plate. Department of Sanitation, dirty sidewalk, dirty area, failure to clean 18 inches into the street, and dirty area. DEP, failure to submit an annual test report for a backflow preventer, failure to install a backflow preventer, and failure to keep, have available for inspection a noise mitigation plan. Fire Department, inspection and testing violations, fire protection systems, failure to prevent unnecessary or unwarranted alarms, and failure to post permits and record keeping. Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, most common, failure to eliminate rodent infestation, shown by active rodent science first violations, failure to eliminate conditions conducive to rodent debris and vegetation first, and failure to eliminate conditions conducive to pest, garbage can spillage. Landmarks was generally different types of work without or in violation of certificate of approval. And DO-IT, failure to clean and maintain public telephones as per the requirements of the subsection, failure to provide working public pay telephones and operator services, and then miscellaneous violations of the rule pertaining to public pay telephones. Parks with unauthorized vending, unauthorized consumption of alcoholic beverages, and failure to comply with bicycle riding restrictions. BIC, as there were only 2 violations, there's only a top, which is idling of motor vehicles, engines over 3 minutes. The appealed violations by issuing agency for the third quarter 2015, Department of Buildings had the most, 257, followed by Sanitation at 228, and then Fire at 107, and the list goes down. There were a total of 750. And finally, the defaults in the third quarter of 2015, there were 78,013 defaults. 71% of those were on summonses issued by the Department of Sanitation, followed by DOT, and then DOHMH. The remaining 16% were for various other agencies. Any questions?
Any questions? No? Okay,
Great.
thank you. All right, next we're going to have a presentation of the proposed rules regarding the amendment of buildings penalty schedule by Diana Haynes. As soon as we get the right date. Okay, Diana.
Good morning. Our first rule proposal is based on the Department of Buildings presentation from August of this year regarding halving the default penalties for DOB violations. Basically, we would be having default penalties issued for aggravated 1 default penalty and aggravated 2 default penalties after the respondent files an acceptable certificate of correction with Department of Buildings, and then Department of Buildings would have to notify ECB of this. And just note that this reduction does not apply to daily penalties for immediately hazardous residential illegal conversions.
Just want to clarify that halving of the default penalties are all default, not just the aggravated one, but all.
Could you identify yourself?
Or in all the codes of
Thank you.
buildings. It just includes the,
Yeah. Yes, with the exclusion of the, right, the
illegal conversion.
immediately had,
Yes, right.
correct.
Any further questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve? Okay, and it looks like all approve and 1 abstention. Thank you, Diana. And now Diana is going to present on the proposed rules regarding the repeal of the Parks Rules penalty schedule.
And once again, this is based on a proposal from Department of Parks and Recreation that was presented at last month's meeting. Oath is looking to repeal the agency penalties for its rules so that they can be relocated to within the respective agency that enforces the violations. And the purposes behind this are, one, that it would help clarify to the public that that ECB is a neutral third party that hears and tries cases brought by other enforcement agencies, and that we are not an enforcement agency. Second, it's going to make it easier for the public to find those penalties, which will be located, within the respective agency's rules. Third, it places the responsibility for determining the amounts of the penalties on the enforcement agency. And finally, it will speed up the rulemaking process rather than having the initial rulemaking process by the enforcement agency and then a secondary one here where we propose a penalty. It could all be done, in a single turn. And just to note, the Department of Parks and Recreation will simultaneously be enacting their penalty schedule within its own rules.
Any questions?
Yes. I have a
Just state
question.
your name.
I'm sorry, I'm Ernest Cavallo, citizen member. There's all of this is going to help the public, et cetera, but in this age of Google, where you want to just find a regulation concerning the Parks Department, you put in New York City Parks Department, riding bicycle too fast or something like that, and it pops up. So where's the difficulty for the public? Has there been an enormous number of complaints that the public can't find the rules because they're not in the Parks Department's rules themselves?
Actually, that's the point. If you type in Google and you put the riding bicycle, it will direct you to the Parks Department rules. And now the penalty schedule will be within their own rules. They don't know to go to the ECB rules to find the penalty schedule.
Why doesn't the Parks Department just incorporate the penalty schedule we already have into their website?
You have to talk to the Parks Department about that.
It seems to me that would be the better solution to having the public find with a lot less legislative work on our part and the legal department. And my other problem with this is, am I reading this correctly? We will no longer be voting on the penalties that the Parks Department chooses to impose?
As a board now.
I'm very opposed to that. Considering that our chair thinks that we should be more transparent and not less transparent, although I can't think of a penalty schedule that was ever voted down by the board, at least there is, you can, good, okay. At least there is a public record of what happened, who voted yes, who voted no, whether there was any discussion. There will be no such record if it's just people in their offices making these rules.
Well-
And I don't see how that helps the public or gives the city of New York, forget the ECB, just the city as a whole, a better reputation among the members of the public. I would like someone to address that.
There'll still be a CAPA process for parks, so the public will be given notice and they will have an opportunity to speak to the rules. The public themselves, not the board, the people who it's going to impact will have an opportunity to speak to the rulemaking.
And in fact, it'll be done simultaneously when the rule is being enacted, so that you're not only getting the rule, but you're getting what the penalty will be right at the same time, as opposed to hearing about it, sometime later on.
When the board does things, though, the board does things as a totality, as a whole. Does this allow, for instance, the Parks Department to make penalties that are out of proportion to the other agencies?
I don't believe so.
That there will not be, the similar kind of default penalties?
They still have the same type of restrictions that every other agency has, public policy and things like that. And they still, again, as I said, the people still have the right to speak to these rules, and they still have to go, city council weighs in on these things. And as Diana pointed out, when the rule about what you are not supposed to be doing is passed, they will then at that same point be able to know what the penalty is going to be. So, I differ in that sense that I think it is still transparent. it's even, to me, a little bit more transparent because it's not this middle body that's interjecting on their behalf. They can speak on their own behalf, the citizens. Just a different viewpoint.
Well, we all know the citizens really don't come out of the CAPA process, and that 4 citizen members here are the people who basically are the watchdogs
But
for
the
the public
rulemaking
in
without the
general.
penalty is CAPA too. So basically, all we're doing is the penalty. The rulemaking itself is coming from the Parks Department. So,
What will the board be doing if we're not going to be doing these votes on penalty schedules, things like that in the future?
I can't speak to what the board will be doing in the future. I can only address what's happening with this one
It
rule right
seems to
now.
me that the board is losing power and losing an oversight and ability, and I don't think that's good for the public, and I'm voting no.
Okay, all right. Any other comments?
Well, can you advance the argument as to how this will benefit the public?
Again, I still think this benefits the public because you do not speak to the penalties. The public speaks to the penalties.
Yes, that's accurate, but only to a limited
I mean,
degree.
basically-
Let
I'm
me
sorry.
just continue.
Mhm.
And the reason I say that is because no one cares about a penalty in the abstract. They care about it when they've been cited for something years after the penalty schedule's been adopted. No one in the community is sitting around saying, hey, I'm going to be picked up for violation ABC in the future, so I should go to this capping hearing. That's just not how the public is inclined to believe.
I think we underestimate what the public can do, and I think in some respects, we assume that we can speak for the public. I think the people, the citizens, they do care, and they care by organizations they set up, for example, the vendors' food project or something.
but-
And what you read about in the paper all the time, so the public has advocates, and they do care. The pedicabs have a voice, so I'm just saying.
You know, one of the things I find fascinating are the transcripts of the public hearings that Jim, opens and closes after no one shows up. And if you did a review of them over the past several years that I've been here, I would be willing to wager that fewer than 5% of them have any public participation of any kind. Meetings open at 2:30 and close at 2:32.
That has to do with our public hearings.
understand that.
I don't know, you're talking about the Parks Department, which is a huge department,
You're
and
right that I'm conflating the two, but I just am suggesting in the main that participation by the public in these types of hearings is very limited.
I would also argue that the Parks Department, it's their rules, and it's their penalties, it's their rules, their penalties. They see what happens, and they determine what the penalties are based on the effect it has on the public.
I just need one clarification. So is this the model then for the other agencies to follow? Is this just the
I think that is the way
test
we,
case?
I think that's the way we plan on seeing this going. Correct.
So would every agency then are going to be having to do what the Parks do, repeal their penalty schedule from ECB's rules and promulgate their own?
I'm not in a position to say having, that's a higher pay grade than me. I think, if you're asking me if that's what we would encourage, yes, that's what Oath would encourage.
So if it's going to be done by a rule or executive decision, because if it's going to be done by a rule, then the agency would have some say in whether or not they want to go that route.
That's correct.
So would that not kind of convolute the whole board process then, where some agencies would have rules for penalties at ECB and some would have it in their own?
I don't think that would be a problem because there are some agencies that have penalties that are set. There are some statutes that have penalties. There is no rulemaking for some particular sections of law. It's a set penalty, so I don't think that would be a problem.
No, I meant the board process. So if ECB will have some penalties in their own, some agencies' penalties in their own penalty rules, and some of the agencies, such as Parks in this case, will not have its penalty in ECB's rules, then isn't that going to make it even worse for the public to understand?
I really don't think so. Right now, the Health Department has the penalties in their rules, and the Health Tribunal adjudicates those cases. It's not in the Health Tribunal's rules, it's in the Health Department rules. So it has been done, there hasn't been any issues with it, and DCA will also have the penalty schedule in their rules. So there's precedent for this.
But I'm Jorge Martinez, DOH, but as it stands now, every agency has the option to keep their rules, the penalties to, within their rules or to leave it,
Right.
right? So,
I didn't say you won't have the option, I said I'm not in a position, at this point you have the option. The rules are such that you do have the option, so I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm only addressing this particular set of rules at this particular point in time. Any other comments, questions?
Yes, Ernie Cavallo, citizen member. Was this initiated by Parks or by ECB?
I can't answer that question. I really don't know the answer to that question. So, yes.
Elizabeth Nauer, citizen member, I apologize for my lack of voice. I just wanted to raise an issue. I'm not really sure that I have a position on it one way or the other, but it just strikes me as perhaps a strange position for the tribunal to be in, when it's adjudicating a violation, that it will be constrained to apply a penalty that's been decided by another, that's determined by another body. So that an ALJ, if, an ALJ faced with a violation and as a matter of law, the person is in violation, will have to apply a penalty that hasn't been adopted by the tribunal. It's been sort of imposed on it by the agency who is the prosecutorial body in that sense. So it's sort of putting the prosecutor, if you want to use that analogy, in the role of determining the penalty, not the adjudicatory body. I just wanted to raise that. It seems somewhat of an oddity to me. I'm not sure that I have a strong position on it one way or the other.
All right.
I think it's worth thinking about.
Okay, well, I could just speak for that it does occur at the Health Tribunal right now. They're imposing a penalty where the rules are in the Health Department rules. So, and it's been working. So I can say that.
When you say it's been working,
I mean, the penalties are set, and the hearing officers know what the penalties are, and they impose the penalties based on the violation. It doesn't create any bit of a difference that it's in their rules as being in our rules right now. It's still a schedule that they refer to and impose the penalties.
it doesn't create a difference in logistics for the ALJ. I am talking more on a policy basis.
A petitioner has the right to recommend the penalty because they are the prosecuting agency.
Well, no, under our
They-
current
they-
regime, there's an ECB penalty
They
schedule.
still make recommendations based on that penalty schedule, and they're making a recommendation to mitigate and such like that. So they are using the penalty schedule and making recommendations.
But the penalty schedule is set. It's not as though the petitioning agency says, within this range, I recommend X. There's a certain penalty set for each violation and level of violation that is determined by the board, not the agency. That's,
Okay. Let's see, go on.
I mean, I would just reiterate that it is, all penalties that are implemented in the city of New York are still subject to the CAFA process. And quite frankly, I think that, if you are implementing a law, enacting a law, repealing a law, amending a law, that the proper time to amend or adjust that penalty would be at the time that you're implementing that law, as opposed to, sometime down the line after the board has met and,
Just one other clarification, relevant to DOB. Are there any other agencies now that appear before the Health Tribunal? I know you said the Health Tribunal does.
Yes.
Is that open?
Well, the Health Tribunal is part of Oath, yes.
All right,
Correct.
so are there any other agencies, except for the health, maybe TLC, I'm not sure, that,
Correct, TLC, that's a good point.
right, but are there any other tribunals that are doing this now, taking their, or we're taking, ECB is taking this Parks penalty schedule out of its own rules, correct? This Parks has already adopted
No,
They'll do
it's
it
gonna be
simultaneously.
simultaneously. So are there any other agencies that, except for health and TLC, that ECB will be imposing, hearing officers will be imposing penalties that are promulgated inside that other agencies' own rules? You understand that?
Russell Pecunes, DEP. We have a complete revision of the air code that takes effect in May. So we have to do a complete new air code penalty schedule. And we were told that it should be done this way, that ECB will repeal the current air code penalty schedule and that we should promulgate the new schedule ourselves. I mean, that came from oath, that's what we were told.
So it's
To do.
it's like an old policy decision then?
If we would do it the way it's always been done, unless we were told to do it differently, I mean, this is what we were told by oath.
So to answer the question, if an agency doesn't repeal, doesn't put its penalty code within its own area, ECB, I guess, you're right, anyway, has the option to repeal those penalty provisions from its.
But they'd have to present it to the board. So it's not likely that will happen. Yes, Madeline.
Madeline LaGuardia, Sanitation. So I'm a little confused. I think a month or two ago, we had to move the meeting to approve a Department of Buildings penalty schedule regarding cooling towers. So if it was the board's, the oath's position that the penalty schedule should not go in the oath provisions, why did that move forward and not go through just buildings rules?
I think at that point in time, I can't speak to this totally, but the severity of the situation, we need to start getting enforcement going.
Wouldn't rules could have been promulgated just as quickly by DLB, so can have the substantial need for earlier implementation. Every agency can do that as long as the mayor signs off.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, please.
So what that would have done, and I understand that, because it was presented to us also, what that would have done would have created not half, but a portion of penalties in one rule, a portion in ECB's rule. So it would have been a little less transparent for the public. So we would want to keep everything in one area, in one rule, all penalties in one rule until we are told otherwise. So we didn't want to split penalties in one rule and split others.
Yeah, I think I would just add, from DEP's perspective, we're only doing this because we're doing an entire new penalty schedule for the air code, and we're not proposing to move any of our other penalty schedules. We have 6 or 7 penalty schedules. We're doing an entirely new one for the air code, so that the existing one would have to be replaced either way. So we were told, because you're doing a whole new penalty schedule, oath will repeal the existing one and you the new one yourself.
Ernst Lalo, citizen member. So are you saying that you were not given the option? Or do you
I'm
not
not
know?
sure that
Are you
we
not
asked
high
for the
enough?
option. I mean, we were just told this is the way it's going to be done from now on.
Okay. That answered my previous question as to where this came from.
Okay, I think we've had enough conversation on this. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a motion? Okay, no motion to even vote.
About that.
Okay, all right, then we will table this for this meeting and we will revisit it. Okay, all right, now we're gonna have Russell Pecunis, request for C&Ds.
Good morning. Again, Russell Puccinis, Assistant Counsel, DEP. So first, this month, DEP has the usual 28 requests for cease and desist orders for failure to comply with requirements to install backflow prevention devices. Same as every month, so I don't know if there are any questions on those.
Okay, is there a motion to approve? Is there a motion to vote? Is there a motion to approve? Okay, thank you. I think that's everyone, one abstention.
One abstention.
Correct, thank you.
Okay, I have 4 requests this month for cease and desist orders pertaining to buildings that have been operating with expired certificates of operation using number 6 fuel oil, which has been banned since June 30th. In each of these 4 cases, the building's boiler has an expired CFODUs number 6. They've been cited for that. The violation has been adjudicated, and there is still no compliance. My information is that we are down to about 15 buildings at this point that are not either already in the cease and desist process or in these 4. So we really should be just about at the end of making these requests.
Elizabeth Maurer, citizen member. So notwithstanding today, it's starting to get cold out. I'm just curious about number of residents this could affect if the cease and desist, I mean, if actually the buildings.
Well, we have not sealed anybody for not complying with this yet. We have, I would say, about 30 or 40 buildings that are still pending in the cease and desist process. There are a handful of them that are in default. Theoretically, we could go seal those, but because we know from either inspection or getting fuel receipts that those buildings, even though the certificate of operation is still expired and still says number 6, we know they're not using number 6 anymore. So we're not going to seal them if we know they're not using 6. We're going to continue to pursue them getting their certificate, but not by sealing.
And does that apply to these 4 buildings as well?
These 4 buildings, as far as we know, they're using 6. If we know absolutely that they're not using 6, then we're not putting them in for cease and desist, because we don't want to add to the case.
So is there a plan to deal with residents if indeed it gets to that point? For you
residents, as a matter of fact, several of the ones that are in the cease and desist process that have been getting adjournments are on temporary boilers. So buildings can get a temporary boiler if they are in the process. If they, for example, they need to replace the existing boiler because it's so old, it's sort of beyond redemption, they have to get a temporary boiler, and there are several buildings that are doing that right now.
Any other comments?
Will DEP make sure that that happens, that it's the temporary boiler in place before any sealing is done?
Well, we can't impose on the building that requirement. We would assume that in order to keep their tenants from freezing, that they would do that. Again, it would be a very, very extreme situation that would cause us to go and seal the boiler in a building in the winter where there was no alternative means of heat and hot water being supplied, because the Red Cross would have to put the people up in a shelter. So, I mean, it would really be an egregious situation before we would do that. I can't really think of the fact pattern that would cause us to do that.
Okay, I'm going to say, Ronaldo, DOB, that would also cause some action from HPD, you just said it, correct?
Yeah.
Ernest Cavallo, citizen member. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we would have to vote on it anyway, wouldn't we?
It would be a recommendation from a hearing officer
To
that
seal?
would come through this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, is there a motion? Okay, All approved? How many approved? Everybody? One abstention?
Yep.
Okay.
And the last one is a request from the Bureau of Wastewater Treatment for a cease and desist order. This is for NGJ 47 Incorporated, which is a metal plater that is located at 71 West 47th Street in Manhattan. And this is the one that has the 54-page permit attached to it. So this facility has a permit from DEP to discharge industrial wastewater to the sewer system. And as part of that permit, they are required to do monitoring of what they're discharging into the sewer, and they're required to submit to DEP a semi-annual report stating what they're discharging to the sewer and showing that everything is within the parameters established in the permit. This establishment, despite repeated orders and violations issued, has not submitted their self-monitoring report that was due on July 31st of last year. They have also failed to give DEP access to inspect the facility on June 11th of this year. And based on the respondent's default as to the violations that have been issued for not submitting the report and not giving access, DEP is asking the board for an order to cease and desist.
Is there a motion? All approved? One abstention.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Kennedy.
you.
Okay, and now Kelly Corso will introduce ECB's request for pre-sealing.
Good morning, I'm Kelly Corso, Assistant Director for ODCB. We have 30 pre-sealing reports today, all of which are pretty non-controversial. 12 of the pre-sealing reports pertain to backflow violations, and 18 of the reports pertain to air code violations. So I'll start with the backflow violations first. Violations first. In 9 of these cases, the hearing officers recommended no sealing or other action based on the respondents establishing that the required backflow equipment was installed at the premises. 2 of the 3 remaining backflow cases, the hearing officers recommended that the cease and desist proceedings be discontinued because DEP has confirmed that no backflow prevention devices are actually required in the site premises. And in the remaining backflow case, the hearing officer recommends that the proceeding be discontinued because respondent established that the water lines at the premises have been sealed and capped and that the demolition permit has been obtained for the site premises. For the air code cases, 17 of the 18 air code cases, in those cases, the hearing officers recommended no further action because the respondents showed that they had obtained valid operating certificates. And in the remaining air code case, the hearing officer recommended that the cease and desist proceeding be discontinued because DEP has confirmed that the equipment has been removed from the site premises.
Okay, any questions? We're going to vote on all these together. Is there a motion and all who approves? Okay, and all approve, one abstention. Okay, is there a motion to go into executive session? Very good. We're going to go into executive session. If you're not a member of oath, we will. Okay, we're back in public session. All those in favor of affirming the appeals decisions from the October 8th, 2015 and the October 22nd, 2000 appeals panel as presented. How many are for? Okay, any abstentions? No, okay. All right, before adjourning, I just want to make sure, did everybody sign the attendance sheet? Okay, we have one more person that has to sign it over here, 2 more over here. Okay, we'll make sure you sign it. And I just wanted to mention, because next month we have Thanksgiving, it's coming so quickly, the meeting will be on November 19th. Okay? All right. So is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? Thank you, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.